And we're live. Welcome everybody here to your well, no, it's not your favorite day of the week. We're recording this on a Thursday. But I am joined here on this Thursday, as I always am in these episodes of The Hook, by Pete Zayas. Pete, how you holding up, bud?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So you remember how it was one of the darker seasons that we covered the team together back when we were doing Lockdown Lakers,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to have Orca facts.
Uh-huh.
I have one for you, and it's a
Oh,
doozy.
it's
Yeah.
been a while. All
Yeah,
right.
it's been a while. I've been wanting to bring this back, and August 21st is a good time to bring it back.
Sure is.
All right. So this one is kind of an indirect Orca fact,
Indirect.
but it's one nonetheless as it involves orcas.
Okay.
But apparently, humpback whales are protecting orca prey from orca attacks. Like,
Oh, I saw this recently, and it's just like out of spite, just like a very like
yeah,
fuck you guys, don't eat type thing. Yeah.
yeah, that like
They're not protecting their own, right? Like it's
right. Like they'll see like a seal or a dolphin getting chased around by a pod of orcas, and they'll
Mhm.
like go out of their way to be like, no, fuck you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, nature's like always fascinated me for a variety of reasons, but this is one of those things where it's like I always find it really interesting when animals act out of without like their own safety in mind.
Uh-huh.
It's one thing to like have like maternal or paternal
Sure.
instincts that kick in, and in that
Mhm.
case, you do risk your own well-being for your kid or whatever. But in this case, a humpback whale, which by the way, whales hunt, you know, they like just go out of their way to just mess with these orcas trying to get their food. I think it's so wild. I think it's crazy.
Why do you think orcas have this like reputation of amongst the other ocean creatures as being the assholes of the ocean, but they don't eat us? Why don't you think orcas eat us?
Dude, that is the eighth wonder of the world
Yeah,
to
it's
me.
it's
It
interesting.
like it's the craziest thing. Well, it's funny is that they have eaten us
Have
in
they?
captivity,
Oh,
only in captivity.
I didn't know that.
That Don Brandt show trainer who Blackfish was based off of,
Oh, that's right.
Tillicum,
Mhm.
like they actually found some evidence that he started trying to eat her. But like in the wild, it has never happened.
Yeah.
One of my bucket list items is actually to travel out to Norway, where you can actually scuba dive with killer whales. And the reason that they can do that, and now like you have the option to do it in or out of a cage. I think Jen
Uh-huh.
would probably make me do it in the cage.
Yeah. Don't
But
become the first, Anthony. Don't become the first.
that's a
You're gonna be like, this guy's a smartass.
could
Like,
you imagine? It turns out like orcas are like crazy big Lakers fans, and they like do everybody a solid.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
It's like,
Says Kobe as he's about to finish you off.
right. No, it's like because they play with their food, right? They throw their
Oh,
food. They like tail him
another
like
orca.
Kobe.
Kobe. As Anthony goes flipping in the air,
Whoa!
75
Yeah,
feet.
I'm actually also yelling Kobe like Kobe. Yeah. All right. Well, that's how we're going to start this episode today
Hell
on the show. What we're going to be talking about is the thing that I think will set the Lakers' ceiling. And the factor that I think is going to basically decide whether the Lakers have the best version of their series that they could or their season that they could possibly have.
Mhm.
Whether we want to call that the most important factor or whatever, that's
Mhm.
semantics. But to me, like the tone setter this season is going to be the relationship between Luka Doncic and LeBron James.
Okay.
And now you and I, Pete, were texting before we went, as we were, figuring out what we were going to talk about. You say that you disagree. So we're actually going to start by discussing, what you find, what you think would be there, and
Mhm.
discuss the make the cases for each other's factors or our factor. And then I've talked a lot about Luka and LeBron playing together and working together and being utilized together. but I don't think I've really gone into detail on what I think that could or should look like. And I think you are probably the best person I could bring on to have that discussion with. So that's going to be the crux of this episode. And as we always do, we'll wander around and meander around as need be. I also saw today, I don't know if you pay any attention to this, but NBA 2K is releasing their player rating. And LeBron, I think, came in at like a 94. He's the seventh highest ranked player in the NBA. Luka came in at like a 95, I think, or a 96. He is the fourth, I think, best player in the NBA, according to 2K.
Okay.
The Lakers, though, are the only team that have two players in the top 10. And I want to discuss that as part of this discussion as well. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and dive on in. Please hit that like button if you guys are new here, or whether you're not new here or whatever. That like button helps. Hit that subscribe button if you are new here. And if you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. If you're listening in the morning via podcast, please subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, because we are company men. All right, let's start. Well, I basically, I already said it. I think the factor that matters most to this season is the Luka LeBron tandem, whether they're utilized together, whether they're on the same page. I don't think it's going to be a rah-rah moment or anything like that. I have heard that they've been in contact at various points over the course of the summer. Obviously, there's the report of LeBron and Luka FaceTiming after Luka signed his extension. LeBron congratulated him on that. I had heard earlier this summer, like at the beginning of the summer, that the two were in contact about how they think they could play together. And look, while LeBron hasn't done anything publicly to indicate this is the case, I have heard that the two guys are excited to play together. And I don't know why every time I say that doesn't get the coverage that when I talk about LeBron being frustrated with the Lakers, that gets, but here we are. But yeah, I do think that like LeBron is Luka's favorite player. LeBron has said Luka's one of his favorite kind of contemporary players. I think the combination works really, really well. I think it anytime you get two of the smartest offensive weapons ever, that there's a lot on that, a lot of meat on that bone. Therefore, I think that is the tone setter for this season. I think it's the most important thing that the Lakers have to get figured out, and the sooner that they can get it figured out, the better. And if they are going to figure into, I saw that you and Darius had a conversation about like what would a championship season look like on your most recent, I think, episode that I listened to. And to me, like, you guys, it was a really good conversation as it always is. But to me, it was like, I would have spent this would have been the thing. This would have been, and I understand. I think you guys went with Luka's MVP type season first. I get that too. But to me, this is the thing that like Luka can have an MVP season, but if he and LeBron aren't on the same page, he's going to have an MVP season on a Lakers team that came up short of its potential championship expectations or hopes. What say you?
Yeah, so when we were talking about this over text, I like 90% agree with you. The part that we were talking about like sets and we'll get into some specifics. I do think there are some actions where they can operate together, but this is a different duo from say LeBron and AD, for example, where they can run the same play. Whoa, hello, Mr. Microphone.
Your mic missed AD.
I know, right? Yeah, they can run the same action. They can be dominant within the same action, and then you compare that to say like Kawhi and Paul George with the Clippers, and that's more of like a taking turns type of thing. And so I think that the majority, I think this is a discussion of how can they be great when they're on the floor at the same time. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same action, right? Like there are plenty of teams around the NBA. The Celtics, for example, don't run a lot with like Tatum and Brown on the same play. It's more like Tatum's turn, Brown's turn type of thing. And you can do that, but it's just a different style. And so that it's more, they were +2 net rating over 23 regular season games last year. Obviously had some odd roster on the other end of the trade, a little bit misshapen, that I do think that will help. But so we're on the same page from they have to be on the same page and clicking, right? I just don't necessarily know that that's going to be a ton of the time in the same play.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. To me, the difference between Kawhi and Paul George and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Luka and LeBron is the amount of creativity that
The
Luka and LeBron
passing
have.
and
Like those guys are two of the best passers of their
Mhm.
generations, maybe the best passers of their generations.
Mhm.
So I think that's one thing. The other thing to me also is both of those guys are equally capable of punishing a switch. So if you get a switch one way or the other, if LeBron has the ball at the beginning of the set, if they run a pick and roll and a team switches, LeBron can punish that the whatever player was guarding Luka in the first place, or like to me, the thing that excites me most is teams tend to blitz Luka,
Mhm.
and that kind of takes that option off of the table if LeBron is setting that screen, because if you blitz Luka and the ball gets dumped off to LeBron and he's in the short roll going downhill against a compromised defense, it's over.
Mhm.
So like I agree with you that it can be clunky, but I think it's the kind of thing that the Lakers can use to at the very least keep other teams honest.
Mhm.
To me, I guess more and to me also, like it just aside from how it looks, the results have to be that Luka and LeBron have to have one of the higher net ratings together of duos in the league.
You can't be a
And
plus
I guess,
two when they're both
yeah,
on the floor at the same time. Yeah.
yeah, and like I guess that's kind of more my point, that like if the Lakers are going to be as good as we're hoping they can possibly be,
Mhm.
it will not happen if those guys have like a middling net rating together.
Mhm.
And whatever we think that should look like, because I do think there's a benefit, Pete, to one of the things that the Lakers were doing and the thing I think that they did predominantly last season was basically have those guys on opposite sides of the court
Mhm.
and then try to punish teams when they overloaded the court to the one side that the guy had the ball on. I
Mhm.
think that's also smart. I think
Mhm.
that's something that they can also do. But I think what the diet looks like and all of that. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I just don't think there's a version of a good Lakers season here that doesn't feature LeBron and Luka having like a top 5
Sure.
net rating together.
How do you divvy that up between the offensive end and the defensive end, right? Because you can make an argument that this is perhaps even more of a defensive conversation than an
Oh yeah.
offensive one. Now, I would argue that to get to that high net rating, they actually have to be great on offense to be able to achieve that. And they can get to good on the defensive end, I think. But for example, I agree with your point about they're capable of punishing switches, but they were okay at it last year together. They
Yeah.
weren't great at it
I
together.
didn't like. Well, go ahead. Why do you think that is? I talk too much. So like, why do you
No,
think
no,
they
it's
were
fine.
just okay at it?
There are a number of things. The simplest one is I don't think they always select the right guy. In fact, I think they often select the wrong
Totally agree.
person to attack and the person to attack them with. The Celtics game drove me crazy because they kept going at Al Horford on the perimeter, who's like their advantage was against Derek White in the post in that game, and LeBron went like 6 of 7 against him. They just, I think, often default to a oh, we're just gonna cook you at the top of the key.
Cook your
That
center, yeah.
Yeah, and cook your big guy, especially. Exactly. That, yeah, that should be part of the diet. But I think to your point of all of the creativity, that if you default toward, oh, you're switching, we're just going to go one-on-one with you in the middle of the court. You stand there. Like, you've sort of cut down on the options that you might get out of that. That I think that in order to exploit those switches and get the most out of this combo, there needs to be a wider variety. I think variety is a big word within this whole discussion.
Yeah, the defense part of this is interesting, Pete, because one of the points that I've been making all summer that I think is like is at least within my own comment sections is I think the Lakers between LeBron, Luka, well, hell, with that starting lineup. Let's say the
Mhm.
starting lineup is with Rui. Because
Okay.
I think
So the
that's
offensive group?
probably likelier.
You think so? You'd think, oh, okay.
I
We'll see. We'll see.
I I don't know. I don't know. I think JJ defaults to shooting, and Rui's a better shooter than Smart. But
Mhm.
I also think Smart has a better resume and has more on the line this season. So if I were JJ, I think Smart would maybe get I don't know, but well, either way, whether it's Smart or Rui, honestly, I don't think there's that big a difference in terms of like their rebounding productivity, but which says something about Rui. But like the thing that I'm really, really excited about defensively with the Lakers this season is Ayton, really good volume rebounder.
Yes.
LeBron, one of the best rebounders of his generation. Luka, actually underrated rebounder. Austin is big for his position, given where he's going to be playing this year. Smart is a physical guy, so at the very least, he's going to box the hell out, right? And if it's Rui, right, and you could, if it's Rui, he's big, and you could just say like, just be big and keep your guy off of the glass, right? But I think the Lakers have the possibility of being a really good rebounding team.
Oh, it makes me want to cry tears of joy, man. This has
right?
driven me crazy for years, Anthony.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's not a stop until you get the ball.
Right.
And I think with the Lakers' ability to rebound this season, even if they aren't as talented individually as defenders, their ability to rebound is I think going to elevate their floor as a defensive unit. And then very importantly, let's say Smart starts. If Ayton gets a rebound, he's going to have like, no matter where he looks, there's going to be a quick outlet pass, and that person is going to hit ahead, and the Lakers are going to be off and running.
Well, who's off and running though on this squad? Maybe often, running like you and I can run these days.
Well, I think they'll be more of a secondary transition team.
I think the bench has some guys who can do it.
Yeah,
more than
but I mean,
and also LeBron's still great in transition. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, I guess more my point is that like at the very least they'll get into their sets faster on rebounds than they did last year.
One thing I really like about Smart that's underrated is he'll push up the sideline. Like he'll just get it up court. Now, sometimes he'll have some wild idea and he'll do something really stupid. Like just warn Laker fans, there's going to be some Marcus Smart moments for sure. But that whole like, I'm going to get it and rather just like really walk it up, because this was a big part of the difficulties the Lakers would have on offense. Anthony, it's like, we're not even getting into our stuff until like 10 seconds left. Let's go, andale, let's go, and like, I think that'll help.
Yeah, so the rebounding aspect of this is I think really important. And look, like we saw those hit ahead passes that Luka would have to LeBron when LeBron would leak out and almost play the Anthony Davis role that in that duo. But yeah, you look at the guys who are going to get those rebounds. If it's Ayton, he has a quick outlet no matter where he looks, and then everybody else on the court can grab and go. Everybody else can grab and start transition play in one way or another. And I think that'll make them a better offensive unit as well. But I think more of my focus, one of the points that you guys made in your podcast was how important it is for the Lakers to be good in the half court and in the clutch, especially. And to me, if the Lakers are a bad half court team this year, something went really wrong and offensively. Sure. And I think the guys that you would look to as far as blame there would be LeBron and Luka, and because you have to, right? And so if I guess what I'm looking for here with those two guys, and look, like I wrote about, I'm doing this like season preview thing, and Luka was the first guy I wrote about. He's been in contact. Obviously, Grade St. Jean is there with the Slovenian national team, but he's been in contact all summer with the coaching staff, with JJ, whatever, asking about how do I get better off of the ball, and whether it's working on his catching and shooting and becoming more confident and comfortable doing so, but also, understanding the angles on cutting and floating into space and setting the occasional off-ball screen and stuff like that. And just doing stuff to remain active so that whoever is guarding him doesn't get to just kind of take a deep breath whenever he passes the ball. When like the one benefit that having LeBron and Luka on the same team this year for both of those guys is that like, that's how they basically load manage while they're on the court.
Mhm.
is they'll give the ball up and they'll say, all right, this is an Austin set. I'm just going to go and catch my breath here for a second. Well, when you're passing the ball over to Luka, you can do that more often. And that should allow you to have more physical resources to be more active when you don't have the ball, in my opinion, and especially defensively. So, yeah, those are the kinds of things that I'm kind of looking for. I want to go back to the point of like setting the ceiling for the Lakers. Again, you guys, the premise of your last podcast was about like what would a championship season look like for the Lakers. You don't have a championship season without this. Like that, you just don't.
Oh, certainly not. No, and like you said, like if the team is bad, certainly they're gonna have to answer for that in the half court. But I would argue they can't even be average in half court offense and get to where they want to go. They have to be really good to great in the half court for this team to be able to reach their ceiling. And so I love that they're communicating. I do have a lot of empathy for their circumstances last year and trying to figure out how to play together on the fly. They had a March that was the most games an NBA team had played in the month, in a single month of any team in years, you know, that you're kind of figuring it out in games and all of that. And so having an off season to talk about it, to, you know, game plan, to watch Luka with Slovenia, right? And then I really think DeAndre Ayton is a central character in all of this. So like getting better playing off of the ball, Lakers need to be better as a screen setting team. When he wants to be, Ayton's a big dude that can set a really good screen that, you know, that can free up Luka to operate off of the ball. Like one of the things that they did last year that I really liked that I think Ayton can help them build off of is there were some teams, and Kobe used to do this. They used to attack this way with Kobe, where it was like Luka's trying to get 15 points in that first quarter because he knows he's getting single covered or they're doing something that defensively he's really in score mode out of the gates, and you'll see him talking shit to the other coach on the bench or what, and he's telling him, come like send that second person, because that's exactly what he wants to trigger those blitzes, and then you get into a whole different part of your playbook as a result of that. But the first thing that needs to happen is the other team's coach has to look over at the assistant or vice versa and be like, well, we got to switch it up. You know what I mean? We can't, we got to change our initial plan. That a lot of,
or it's Sam Mitchell and he never changes it up and Kobe scores 81.
Kobe scores 81, right? And there are coaches like that are like anybody but everybody else. You get yours, but nobody else can get theirs, type of thing. And so I think that like in those instances, a lot of our RAM screen stuff, we were talking a moment ago, I think it'll be less Luka and LeBron in individual like 2-man ball screens and more of the 3-man action stuff, whether it's our RAM screens, our stacks, our double drags, our high post split type of stuff, whatever plays involve sort of 3 guys in the middle of the floor, or you got LeBron starting out in a corner and hauling ass up the curb of the 3-point line to get downhill, or he can fade that into a 3. Really, and this is something that Luka can do. It's something that Austin can do. I would love to play on that optionality more, rather than just look for matchup hunting, like matchup hunt within that, right? But play off of the optionality within that. And I think that one of the important options in that is the player on the other end of the screen being an actual scoring threat, Anthony, around the basket, being able to catch the ball at an odd angle. This is one of the things I really like about Ayton's game, is that he doesn't need a perfect pass to be able to catch it or to finish it from, he doesn't need the perfect circumstances around the basket. That Luka makes so many of those late passes that when he drives to the basket where it's like, you thought he was going to shoot it, but he dumps it off at the very last moment. Ayton's going to absolutely eat on that. But all of it starts with a good screen, right? You can run some actions where last year, once Jackson was no longer able to play come playoff time, there was nobody that had that at all in the Lakers rotation. And so I think he's going to be a huge factor in this.
Yeah, Jackson, the season was, the series, but the season was also over as soon as Jackson was out of the rotation. Like, I know you mentioned that you went back and rewatched the Minnesota Timberwolves series, and just, you know, how much alcohol did that feature? Because I would not have.
I raw dogged it.
But I've started it, like, you know, because Raj always talks about, you know, rewatching this, and
love me some Raj.
I can't rewatch losses. It's hard for me to rewatch losses. And especially frustrating ones, because I just felt like the Lakers left so much meat on the bone, and it was a terrible matchup, and like it was just like anyway. But yeah, the I want to go. I want to talk about one of the points you made there about LeBron specifically, and not just matchup hunting, but doing so with motion. LeBron getting the ball with motion is, to
Mm,
me, one of the kind of underrated factors of this season.
mhm,
Because Luka isn't really a motion type player, right? Like he, he doesn't benefit as much from catching the ball while he's moving
mhm,
as LeBron does, because LeBron's just a better athlete.
mhm,
There's more that LeBron could possibly do there, if he gets the ball rolling towards the basket. Not to say that Luka doesn't benefit at all, also, but like
mhm,
I think LeBron benefits from it more. And if the Lakers can find a way to, and this is what I talk about when it comes to like not needing to load manage as much if you're LeBron.
mhm,
But if they can find a way to get LeBron in motion and get him the ball while he is
mm,
moving, that makes him as dynamic a player at 41 as he was when he was 34, in my
mhm,
opinion. That it just changes so much of what he could possibly do there, because more often than not, he's going to be facing a mismatch because the other team's best defender is going to be focused on Luka.
mhm,
And then if you give him that mismatch and he gets the ball with some momentum going one way or the other, and you have him facing, very importantly, a defense in motion, that just, you use the term a lot, putting defenses in a blender. That just, really
mhm,
gets it going and puts them in that blender sooner. So
mhm.
what do you think of getting LeBron in motion, the ways to do so? Do you think this is a possibility, or do you think at 41 he'll be kind of more focused on being a little bit more stationary just to get through 82?
Yeah, I think the motion will be limited, but I think there is still value to it and ways to do it. The simplest is starting him out in the corner. Like one of the simplest things we do is just a little down screen. He's great at taking that three while moving from the right corner to the right wing and moving to his
Yeah.
left and taking that shot. And then he's got a ball screen opportunity off of that if he wants. He's got a post up opportunity if they switch it, right? That if you have your big setting, that he can go out on the perimeter and isolate against them. So I do think that there's variety within that, whether that's in the middle of the floor or not. One thing that I keep thinking about more and more, though, is I think the offense especially is going to have a different personality relative to what group we're talking about. So with LeBron specifically, like how LeBron plays in the starting lineup alongside Luka, alongside Austin, alongside Ayton, I think the answer to that's a little bit different than say the non-Luka minutes at the beginning of the second quarter, which
Yeah.
is usually where LeBron will start the beginning of the second and the beginning of the fourth, and usually Austin's in that group. It's funny lately I've been thinking of like I want Ayton in the LeBron group for offensive reasons, right?
Hmm.
Basically, like Ayton will start, and then he'll probably be with either Luka or LeBron
I think
in one
Jackson
of the.
makes more sense with Luka.
You think so? Okay, yeah. So, but here's the thing: is yeah, it might be Jackson, but then who replaces Smart? Sorry, this is future hook episodes as we get into there's sort of like kind of you play a little bit of a game of whack-a-mole if you start planning out the rotation. We'll do
Oh,
this soon.
totally.
Um,
Yeah.
but
I think
yes,
Vando replaces Smart, but go ahead.
that's what I'm saying. And so, can you play Vando and Jackson at the same time, a ton of minutes? And does that mean like Kleba starts getting the minutes? I've like I always say, I'm
I
holding
I'm
out for
not gonna
zero, but
like
yeah,
involve Kleba in any rotation until I see him play his first game.
it
I
can't be the
think,
plan. It also like can't be the like what are
yeah.
we doing here? From a I'd even say that about Jackson to a degree.
It's
Where
like
it's like
when he played in the playoffs, that was literally what I was saying to my TV. What are we doing?
yeah, and it's
Like,
like
what the fuck?
we can get to the trade deadline, no problem. I think with Jackson, but just from a what do we do when DeAndre Ayton isn't at the 5 spot, I think is a burning question even now, right?
Yeah.
Um, so anyhow, how LeBron operates on the offensive end in say those non-Luka groups, I think is a different calculus than it is with him. How do you view sort of incorporating that motion? Let's say Luka is on the court. You don't want him to be able to have the ball and cook and do what Luka does, but you don't want LeBron to just be the dude in the corner too. And I felt last year there was a certain amount of your turn, my turn that I do think is inevitable. But how do you keep them from being sort of ships passing in the night and more integrated with each other?
Yeah, I think well, for one thing, I want to be clear. Your turn, my turn has its benefits too, because LeBron getting a turn and Luka getting a turn, those are good
Those are
turns.
totally good things. It's more about like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's like, what is the other guy doing off of that? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's going to be standing in the corner being like, damn, that guy's really good. You know,
Yeah.
like, there's going to be a lot of those
Yeah.
plays, but like we
Yeah.
want it to have some degree of incorporation where it's not just isolating against switches. Teams really hurt us with their switching, that I feel like if they can solve the initial advantage creation versus a switch, solve that part, there's like a floodgates of offense to be where they could be really, really productive. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So for some reason in my brain, I always have LeBron on the left side of the court and Luka on the right side, because I just think LeBron going to his strong side and being able to elevate off of his left foot, like the more often than I could get him, or at least have that be the threat, the better. It's funny when I think of what those guys are going to be doing off of the ball. I envision LeBron starting in the corner, getting a screen that brings him up the court while Luka drives to kind of the elbow. Whereas I actually have Luka getting kind of fade screens where he's moving more towards the corner. He starts a little
Sideline.
higher and moves towards the corner, moves more towards the sideline. Because I think Luka is a little bit more talented as a catch and shoot player than LeBron is. LeBron has a really interesting shot in that, like you can tell LeBron really has it going when he takes a right foot, left foot shot. And you know, because he really prefers to have his left foot set and swing that shoulder around and get his body squared to the basket that way. But when he really has it going, and he goes right foot, left foot, and he just shoots it without hesitation. That's when I say like, oh fuck, it's gonna be a good LeBron game. You know, it's gonna look good. Luka, I think, is more talented in the variety of shots he can take off of the catch. He can hop into his shots. He can hop out of his shots. He can shoot right foot, left foot, right foot. And as such, that's why I kind of envision him floating towards the corner, whereas I have LeBron coming more to the ball, and in more of a aggressive stance than Luka would be in more of a passive stance. But that's just very bare bones kind of a thing. The big thing is that like there is some motion on the backside there. The other thing too is it also depends on who's on that weak side with them. So you would typically have a pick and roll partner on the strong side with Luka. Whether that's Ayton or Hayes or whatever. But I actually really like the idea of LeBron occasionally going down and setting a screen for Austin coming up towards the ball and then occasionally darting to the basket as Luka or a seal or whatever. And using some of Austin's gravity there too. And this is the funny thing, Pete. And actually, I'm glad that we're kind of arriving at this part of the conversation. Austin's a big part of this. Because for one thing, you know, I've been asking around, and one of the things that I've heard a little bit is that like Austin is really hammering catch and shoot this summer.
Great to hear. That's great.
That like he's, you know, one of the things that he's kind of honed in on. And now I don't know if that is catch and shoot, you know, because like Laravia is a really good float catch and shoot player, but he's not great at like coming off of screens and stuff. I don't know if Austin is working as much coming off of screens or if
we don't need that.
More.
He didn't need to take that shot. Sorry, I have a rant about this, but yeah.
No, actually, I want to come back to it because I know what rant you're going to have, and I think it's a really important one. But with like Austin, if he and LeBron are on the weak side, I don't know how a defense completely commits to the strong side while those two guys are on the weak side. And that to me is kind of, and same goes for like if LeBron has the ball and it's Luka and Austin on the other side, or if it's LeBron and Austin on the strong side running 2-man together and it's Luka on the weak side. I don't know necessarily how teams would handle that either. So that to me is like that's like the next step of this is the involvement of Austin in all this stuff.
Isn't that though somewhat of the premise of last year of how they like Luka on one side of the court, LeBron on the other, and sort of that is it's a different way of applying gravity, right? It's not
Mhm.
all concentrated on the strong side, but how does that differ from
Oh, I
like
see what
what
you're
they did?
asking.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, isn't
Yeah.
that the same thing they did last year in a lot of ways, where it's like Luka on one side, LeBron on the other?
Yeah. So I think that would be part of the diet. I guess, yeah, you asked what LeBron and Luca look like together. Um, I really like Luca as remember when the Lakers were occasionally running their offense with AD as kind of the fulcrum,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of handoff stuff off of AD.
Totally agree that handoffs are going to be a big deal this year. Yep.
Give me Luca with those handoff options where he catches the ball. The one thing Luca does really, really good, and Lonzo was really good at this too, is as he's catching the ball, he's kind of looking at what's going on elsewhere.
Mhm.
And if Luca is the guy who is kind of operating as that fulcrum, and LeBron is coming to him to catch that handoff, I
Mhm.
don't know how a defense doesn't overreact to that. And if you have a shooter in the corner on either corner there, Luca is super capable at whipping that
Doing
pass
that.
to one corner or flipping that pass to the closer corner. Those are, I think that's that'll probably wind up being my favorite type of set with Luca and LeBron together. What do you think of, like, how would you run a pick and roll with those two guys though? Like, would you run it flatter? Would you run it more vertical? How would you run that?
I'd be looking to do more blur ghost screen type of
Yeah.
stuff. So a ram screen is a screen the screener action, right? So one of the things that I'd like to see the Lakers do in that sort of situation. So let's say it's a 3-man action with LeBron, Luka, and Aiton, and
Mhm.
LeBron and Luka are interchangeable on this. But in this example, let's have Luka with the ball in like the right slot. LeBron in the left dunker spot, and Aiton coming to set a ram screen for him. So he's looking to screen for LeBron, and LeBron's going to come up to set a screen for Luka.
Yep.
And these are the ghost blur screen types where LeBron can ghost it and fake it and pop out to the 3-point line. And what this does is I think a lot of the Lakers screening actions and handoffs are in this similar type of family. A lot of their best screening actions are going to come from behind. So say I'm guarding you, right? I'm guarding on the ball. The
Yeah.
screen coming up at a flat angle from behind, and then at the last moment, you either slip it and you ghost it up out to the 3-point line, or you can set it left side, right side. But that sort of if you're the defender, you're depending on your big behind you saying left, right, whatever your calls are for that, and that can
Yeah.
change in the last moment. And then you've got to worry about Luka's shifty ass like losing you. That helps him in the spacing as well, right? It also, if they want to switch that on the ram screen end of things, Aiton can just reverse pivot, seal. I'm 3 feet away from the basket. Give him a target, throw him a post entry. He's going to hit that jump hook. And
Right.
so, but that in the Minnesota series, despite the result, they started discovering, I think, some things in that between their flex motion and then the handoff stuff that you were talking about. They were doing a lot more out of the stacks, for example, where one of the stack variations is you give the ball to the big or whoever the big was in that series,
Yeah.
right? And
Air quotes.
then like Austin, for example, you could give the ball to Aiton in a stack and have Austin as the low guy on a stack and him run off of the handoff. And he's so good at losing a guy, right? Where, oh, you think I was going to keep going this way, but going to go behind my back, use his
Yeah.
handles and whatnot. That those are, I think, for really across the team, I think a lot of ghost screen, blur screen, back screening type of concepts, I think, are really going to be a big part of what the Lakers do.
The screener thing is really exciting, for a couple of reasons. Like you said, if they just try to switch, Aiton can just seal really, really quickly. And the great thing about LeBron and Luca operating in 3-man game with Aiton is both of them are really tall, so they can just throw skip passes over the top of the defense. I think that's really important. But the second thing is here, and you talked about it a little earlier about, like, yeah, you can match up hunt, but let's bring some motion into that. Well, if a team switches stuff and a center is going to be starting on Aiton. So if you screen the screener and they switch that initial one, now their center has to switch that initial ram screen and then come up and navigate switching the Luka screen. And Gobert, I thought they made life a little too easy on Gobert, in that it was just like, all right, we're going to set the screen and then we're going to get the switch. And then Luka's going to stand there and dribble for a few seconds and let Gobert just kind of like situate himself. But if you force Gobert to switch that first screen, then come up and then switch the second screen, and if Luka attacks right off of that initial switch when he comes up, when Gobert or whatever the center is, whoever the center is, if Luka acts quickly on that second screen that LeBron would now be setting, good luck to whatever center that is. I can think of one center that I think I would trust to handle that situation. He used to be a Laker, now he's a Maverick. But outside of him, I can't think of any centers really. Maybe Mobley would handle that situation pretty well, but you're talking about a very, very small number of centers who would handle that situation. The other part of this too, Pete, is I know LeBron and Luka love to operate with like, all right, take my time, take a look at the defense, and it's kind of like the stages of translating a language, right? Where you either don't speak it, or you basically, you think of what you're going to say in English, you say it in the second language, you think of it, you translate it internally, and then you execute that sentence. And then same goes for like when you hear that, you hear somebody say something in Spanish, you got to translate it from Spanish to English, figure out what they said, and then it's just like a whole mess.
You got a 24-second shot clock too. It makes things hard. So.
But like when you're fully fluent, like at one point in my life, I was fully fluent and I was dreaming in Spanish. And so like you hear it and you're thinking in Spanish already. And LeBron and Luka have to think in Spanish here. They're very used to that second stage of translation where it's like, I can just look at the offense and pick them apart this way. But when you have somebody like, if you're Luka with the ball and you have LeBron over there, or if you're LeBron with the ball and you have Luka over there, you make the other guy better by thinking in Spanish, by operating that much more quickly. And when you talk about that Ram screen or anything that involves LeBron and Luka, making quick decisions, and this is why I think it's really important that they've been in communication already this summer, so that when they hit training camp, if they have that pre-training camp, which I don't think they're going to have because Luka has the Slovenian Eurobasket, but if they have that pre-training camp that they have had in years past, it'd be nice to have LeBron and Luka just get super focused on making those quick decisions off of each other, because I think that's a really underrated element to those guys working together.
I totally agree. I wonder who on this team, including them, really likes to and wants to run a lot. Because you can think quickly, but somebody out there, especially if we're talking about all this motion stuff, the whole point is to get away from the defense, right? And this is not going to be, I think, a particularly fast Lakers team. I do think that the motion can help facilitate physical advantages. I see this team being most successful with their strength, and even Luka and LeBron. It's like quick decisions, but like physical strength being very much the star. For example, that Ayton sequence that we described, where it's like, good luck, you're buried, or you've got the center out on Luka in space having to navigate two screens to get there. I'm just killing this mic stand. My God.
That microphone is really, that microphone is what Gobert would do in that set.
That's right. Yeah, just fall over. Yeah, just timber, right? So we're good. So yeah, I think that like they're going to be a lot likelier to be more physical and stronger than other teams than faster than them. So I do think that the quick decision making has to be accompanied by some of the other 4 guys or 3 guys on the court actually like running around and sprint to that screen and sprint to deep corner and cut hard. And so I think, a guy like Rui, for example, is a character within this. Austin as well is more of an on-ball guy.
Rui's cutting is really going to matter.
And even on like the ghost screens and stuff, that was one of the things that they found success with in the latter part of the Minnesota series, was like pick and pops with Rui, doing the exact like ghost screen type of action, pop to the top of the key to go with Luka, he's wide open type of stuff. That type of off-ball player that's going to run and really commit to doing that, I think is important.
The Lakers' short roll this season is going to be a weapon. Has to be a weapon. Because I thought that was one of the things that Rui did well in that Minnesota series, was handle that short roll. There was like a stretch there, and maybe it was the game that they won I forget. Again, I haven't gone back and rewatched it because I just can't. But yeah, at one point they ran like a few possessions in a row of Rui in the short roll, and I think they went on a run
It was
when they did that.
it was the game 4 where they played the whole group the 24
Mm,
minutes in the six. It was the end of that third quarter. They went on a run and went up by 10. That it
yeah,
was a
you're
lot
right.
of it was off of the Rui. That yeah, absolutely. So they've got some things. They've got some things in their bag that I'm excited they have a training camp and an off season to talk about it and game plan for it.
Yeah. Last thing, I know we said 45 minutes. I'm going to try to keep this to 5. But the 2K ratings came
Yeah.
out. They're both in the top 10. Luka and LeBron are. I wrote about it in today's article that the Lakers are situating themselves for Giannis, for Jokic, potentially for whatever extra or other star becomes disenamored with their current situation. That said, you do have 2 pretty damn good players on your team right now.
Right now.
And also, you have Marcus Smart making less money than he has ever made, basically in his like non-rookie scale career. You have DeAndre Ayton making far less money than he should probably be making. You have Austin before he gets his raise. You have, I think Rui's probably due for a little bit of a raise in his next contract as well. Like, I actually think the stars are pretty well aligned to go for it this year. And I know that the Lakers are kind of hesitant to move 31/32, whichever pick it is that they wind up moving, because they want that in the cash to be able to present for whatever star, says, I'm sick of being here. Also send me to the Lakers. But man, Pete, like, I don't know. No other team has 2. And look, NBA 2K ratings and rankings and stuff like that, and player rankings in general, they exist in August to make us talk about the sport or whatever. So that's fine if you want to poke holes in 2K rankings. I'm fine with that too. But fact is, I bet when ESPN comes out with their top 100, LeBron and Luka will both be in the top 10. I don't know where the Ringers or Bleacher Reports put theirs at or whatever. But anyway, the Lakers have 2 of the best players in the NBA right now. And I just think this presents them an opportunity that they kind of have to try to take advantage of. Does it, like, over the course of the summer, have you shifted your stance on going for it?
Big time. They added 2. So between Ayton and Smart, I would estimate that's about 60 to 64 playoff minutes per game that they added for free in terms of not
assets.
Not giving up assets. And so that's starting caliber minutes for 2 guys that in some ways, I viewed this very much as a transition season, and in some ways it's still going to be, right? Even you could throw the Mark Walter sale into that stew as well. But you put it there perfectly, man. It's like, you're not going to have Austin at this salary next year. You're not going to have Smart or Ayton. That if they opt into their player options, it means this season went very, very badly for them and for the Lakers, right? You've got several guys below market value that I do think there's an argument to be made that under the new CBA, that sort of guy who's looking for an opportunity post buyout, I actually think they were pretty clever in identifying a market where they could get 60 minutes worth of playoff rotation player that I think that might exist in the future too. So if it's not DeAndre Ayton at, the 8.3 million, maybe it's some other really good player that just needs a chance. Something went sideways and here he is, right? So that said, like, you can't count on that. And you don't know if you're going to get Giannis or Jokic. Like, all of these are like low percentage probability type of things that they're going to work.
Ask the Warriors, man. They've been trying for Giannis for a decade.
For sure. I think the Lakers have a better chance at him than people realize, but I don't think it's like a 50% chance at him, right? Like, it's not a likely outcome. And so, I think that going for it this year, after adding 60 minutes worth of playoff talent, and you still have the 31 or 32 pick, you have expiring contracts, you've got players, you've got good players available on the market today. There was a report that, like, they can't find a trade partner for Malik Monk, who would be like, if we could have Malik Monk instead of Gabe Vincent, I would, I wish we had more defense. But anyway, there's options. Lakers can make some moves from here that adding that talent for free really changed my perspective.
The first 20 games, I think, are really going to matter because in that time, that's when those teams that have maybe thought to themselves, hey, maybe we have like a great season and we get to the play-in, you know,
And
those
then
like
reality goes and slaps you around. And
yes.
yeah.
Portland, I'm thinking of you. But like you know, I like those teams in those first 20 games, I think they'll hit reality. And that's when you get to mid-December. That's when more players become trade eligible. That's when trade rumors start swirling in more earnest. And I think that will be like it's really important. And this, I think, is one of the better arguments for Rui to start at the beginning of the year, is that you have that continuity and you can rack up wins with basically just swapping out Hayes for Ayton and then having a starting five that actually played really well together in the regular season last year. Maybe that's the argument there for Rui over Smart. I would still rather start Smart, to be completely honest. But yeah, I would just say that, like, if the Lakers, they have a really soft opening to the season, and if they rack up those wins, and if Portland, if Miami, if some of these other teams, Miami just salary dumped Haywood Highsmith, you know, like, I think the writing might be on the wall for the kind of season that they're getting ready for as well. So if enough of these teams have bad enough starts and you start to have more of these conversations where, like, Wiggins doesn't cost a first rounder, maybe he costs Rui, but he doesn't cost also a first rounder, then you know, I think we're in business. And I think that's where this season becomes, you know, quite a bit more interesting. I'm actually fine with not committing a first rounder to bring in a slight upgrade or even a decent upgrade this summer. I think that first rounder will extend quite a bit further as we get into the actual season. And then if I start hearing some of the names that could go for that first rounder, maybe then I'll get a little bit more frustrated with what decision they do or do not make. But I thought they handled this offseason really well. They have that optionality going into the season. And I think, to me, given this opportunity in front of them, they have to make good on that optionality. And they really, like, this to me is as good of an opportunity at a championship as you might ever get with Luka. And I don't think that's hyperlative. Like, I just think it's the reality. You have LeBron, who's still really bleeping good. You have a bunch of guys on well below market value contracts. You have Luka Doncic in the peak of his powers, basically, is where we're going to see him this year.
In great shape.
Just fucking go for it. So.
Hell yeah.
Pete, this has been a blast, as it always is. Anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
No, man. No, always fun doing these. Looking forward to the next one.
All right, everybody. I am off for the weekend. I'm heading down to New Orleans for a fantasy football draft. So that is going to do it for me this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be back on Sunday to hop into the mailbag. I'll be right off of New Orleans, so I might be a little thick, but I will probably I'll be right here to answer those mailbag questions. Get them in the form of a 5-star review to iTunes. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Follow Pete. Subscribe to the LFR pod as well. And until the next time you guys hear from me, have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you on Sunday. Thanks, Pete.